The principle of specificity. Undoubtedly one of, if not the single most important concept in training, derives from the observation that the adaptation of the body is specific to the type of training undertaken. Generally speaking, I think we can all agree that no matter which discipline or type of training you choose, whether you're bodybuilder, weightlifter, cyclist or calisthenics athlete, you have to be specific to the goals you set. In strength training, specificity creates the base for all the other principles by situating at the very bottom of the pyramid. So no, the title of this video is not a clickbait. What if I told you this most important concept, the base of all training and staple of sports success, might also be what's holding you back from making better calisthenics improvements? What if specificity is that inhibiting factor on your planche journey? Enjoy! The title of the video, just like the intro, might be a bit confusing to you. How something so important to our progress at the same time can ruin it? It doesn't make sense. I think what people often don't understand looking at different principles of training is that just like they can be under-applied, which certainly happens more often, there is also the other side of the coin. The examples of lack of specificity are quite obvious. Running long distances in pursuit of becoming powerlifter, trying to become a sprinter by training only with weights, being bodybuilder and never going above 5 reps. The over-application of specificity is a bit more nuanced, but it does exist. To visualize it better, let's take some other principle. For instance, training variation. Everyone knows that from time to time it's good to mix stuff up to avoid adaptive resistance. This statement is absolutely true, just like the fact that mixing and changing stuff up all the time does not let us properly adapt to the stressor. The conclusion is, variation is neither good nor bad in nature. It depends on how it's being used. This applies to all existing principles. We should look at them as the tools that have certain more optimal doses that differ based on different factors. These factors are the experience, objectives, current phase of training, and individual differences between athletes. The real art of training is being able to find out the most advantageous dose for each one of them to achieve desirable results. Coming back to the specificity, what calisthenics athletes often do is try to be very specific more or sooner than they actually should be. It manifests itself in a variety of different scenarios. People who just start their calisthenics journey are told the planche is all about the straight arm angle specific strength, which is a true statement. But what they are not told is that to effectively work on such a specific ability, one has to build more general strength base. The most specific you can get to the goal of holding planche for 5 seconds is, guess what? Holding planche for 5 seconds. But just because it's your goal does not mean you should only work on 5-second static holds. It's like powerlifter who skips all the phases and goes straight to the peaking because that's most specific. It can work for a very short period and probably will, to be honest. But if you think about making some real long-term gains, it's not the way to go for majority of people. If you would like to learn how to do it, I suggest watching my last video about periodization in calisthenics, where I explain how going through different phases of training can be very beneficial for bodyweight athletes. The other example applies to more advanced people as well and was mentioned by Jakub in our recent podcast. Forcing specificity in non-specific exercises. As bodyweight athletes, there's an urge to imitate certain skills when doing weight training. Close grip overhead press with protracted shoulder blades and neutral back, bench press with maintained protraction and posterior pelvic tilt. There is nothing terribly wrong about this practice, but what I want you to understand is that there are reasons the exercise like overhead press has been considered to be a great general strength builder for ages. By significantly changing the standardized, generally accepted technique, you might actually decrease the effectiveness of it for the sake of specificity, which can be achieved in bodyweight exercises that are just designed to train the specific abilities. It reminds me of doing very sport-specific exercises under resistance, like practicing tennis shots on a cable machine. Leave the specificity for the specific exercises and use gym to build more general abilities. Again, slight form tweaks are usually okay, just don't try to make some extreme changes. So to summarize, I should first repeat, specificity is king. Being specific to the goals should be a #1 priority of any athlete. However, there is a thing like too much specificity, and it's extremely common in calisthenics. As strength athletes, we should think with a perspective. Just like there's the time to be very specific, there are also periods you should focus on building strength and muscle base and not being afraid to use less specific exercises. If you currently work on your planche, there's a high chance you could benefit from either directing some time to building muscle mass and general strength in the upper body, or just adding some less specific movements like weighted dips, push-ups, or military press to your routine. Just because you train for strength doesn't mean you have to go heavy all the time. You can successfully use different rep ranges. Don't be afraid of losing your skill and rather treat it as an investment for the future. Thank you so much for watching. This was Sphinx Movement TV. Talk to you next time.